Hello, and welcome to today's presentation, How to Determine if Your Project Needs Institutional Review Board or IRB Review. This video is part of the Office of Research Integrity in Education's Research Concepts video series. This video is intended for our research community to learn more about the process of documenting those projects that are deemed not human subjects research under federal guidelines. We are excited to share this information with you, so let's get started. The goals of this video are threefold. First, to assist DU investigators in determining whether your project meets the regulatory requirement for IRB approval, provide examples of the most common projects at DU that typically do not require IRB review, and to review the DU process for obtaining documentation for projects that do not require IRB review. This video is intended for student investigators. However, faculty and staff may also find the content to be a helpful tool as you work to determine if your project will require IRB review. One of the first steps you need to take when determining if your project needs IRB review is to first ask yourself, is my project human subjects research? Federal regulations and definitions determine whether a project will require IRB review. It's important to note here that the process of determining if whether or not you need to go through the IRB office for your project should be done in collaboration with your faculty sponsor or instructor. All students who are conducting research at DU are required to work with a faculty sponsor or instructor throughout the planning, submission, and implementation processes. This video does not serve as a substitute for that requirement. IRBs are required to review all projects that meet the federally regulated definitions of both research and human subjects. Let's dive a bit further into some key terms found within this definition. A systematic investigation means a study or examination involving a methodical procedure or plan that may be qualitative or quantitative in nature. Design refers to the purpose of the investigation. Some investigations are exploratory in nature or are intended to train students and are not designed to produce generalizable knowledge. It is important to note that although some projects involving qualitative data collection or projects that are exploratory in nature may not have specific aims and hypotheses at the outset of the research, these can still be considered systematic investigations designed to contribute to generalizable knowledge if the purpose of the project is to archive results for future research, to compare results to other assessments, or to draw conclusions. Generalizable knowledge means conclusions, facts, or principles derived from particulars, think individual subjects, medical records, etc., that are applicable to or affect a whole category of individuals, such as members of a class or a field of knowledge, and enhance scientific or academic understanding. Research involves methods such as utilizing surveys, interviews, focus groups, biospecimens such as blood or brain tissue, to obtain data that will be used to draw conclusions about a specific group of individuals or to advance understanding in a field of study. For example, you may want to conduct an investigation of graduate students' well-being, and will be utilizing well-being questionnaires and conducting focus groups with students to be able to publish an article regarding graduate students' well-being. This project would include a systematic investigation that is designed to contribute to the scientific understanding of graduate students' well-being beyond just those who participated in your study. Now let's look a bit closer at the definition of human subject. Human subjects are living individuals about whom an investigator conducting research obtains 1. Data through intervention or interaction with the individual, or 2. Identifiable private information. Humans are considered subjects and covered by federal regulations if the researcher interacts or intervenes directly with them, or collects identifiable private information or identifiable biospecimens. Based on what you know now, will your project require IRB review? As a friendly reminder, if you are a student investigator, you should always consult with your faculty sponsor or instructor throughout the project development and implementation process. In accordance with the common rule, if your project meets both the definition of research and human subject, you are required to submit your project to the IRB for review to meet federal regulations for human subjects research. Please refer to our website for more information regarding the IRB submission process. Many of you watching this video have likely determined that your project does not meet both of these definitions, Or maybe you're still a little unsure of whether your project meets the criteria for human subjects research. In that case, what should you do? First, let's look a bit closer at common project types that do not typically require IRB review to see if your project fits within one of those categories. These are the common project types we see at DU that typically are not categorized as human subjects research, and therefore do not require formal IRB review. Let's take a closer look at each of these project types to determine where your project may fit. A case study is a type of research approach that is often used in social sciences to collect and present detailed information about a small group of individuals, typically 3 or fewer, or about a particular participant or a single organization. It may involve collecting data using participant and direct observations, interviews, protocols, tests, examinations of records, and collections of writing samples to test a hypothesis. Case studies may also involve either retrospective or prospective study. A retrospective case study looks backwards and examines the incidence of certain factors in relation to an established outcome. A prospective case study looks forward and examines a particular individual or case for a particular outcome that may be associated with the presence or absence of relevant factors. We see case studies from a number of different departments at DU. For example, students at Morgridge College of Education may do a case study of a particular school's response to a social justice initiative, while an anthropology student may want to study how a museum works to capture authentic stories of Native populations, and an art history major may want to study a particular artist's body of work and speak to that artist about their experience. One of the key pieces to consider if you think you may be conducting a case study is whether you intend for the findings to be generalizable beyond the particular small group, person, or organization. Conclusions from case studies are only about the participants that were observed. DU course-related research projects are limited to course-related activities designed specifically for educational or teaching purposes, where the data are collected from and about students as part of a routine class exercise or assignment, and they're not intended for use outside of the classroom. We typically see these types of projects from research methodology classes, where students are tasked with surveying or interviewing other students or conducting data analysis for the purposes of learning about research. These are typically assignments and are part of the required assignment for a particular course. Again, these types of projects are not intended to be used outside of the class in which you are completing the project. It is important to note that this is not the same as classroom-based research where you're conducting research within an educational setting, such as an elementary school or elsewhere. That type of project typically does require IRB review. Oral history projects look to document a specific historical event or the experiences of individuals from a particular historical perspective, without the intent to draw conclusions or generalize findings. This can feel very similar to a case study. However, this type of project is looking at historical events and therefore is always done retrospectively. For example, a political science student may wish to interview a presidential candidate to understand the campaign process from their perspective, or a religious studies major may wish to interview clergypersons about the impact of COVID-19 restrictions in 2020 on their congregations. Program evaluation projects are some of the most common HSR determination requests we get in our office at DU. Certain departments, such as the Graduate School of Social Work, do a lot of program evaluation. Program evaluation can utilize research methods, including a systematic investigation. Program evaluation can also include human subjects, like interviews and focus groups that are often a key component of program evaluation work. However, the major differentiating factor between program evaluation and projects that are considered human subjects research is that the outcome or data that is generated as part of the program evaluation is not generalizable and is not intended to be utilized beyond the program or organization which was the focus of the evaluation. The goal of the program evaluation is often to contribute to the improvement of the program, organization, or policy. The findings are shared with the stakeholders of the organization. Findings can also be published or presented upon. However, The use of the word research is highly discouraged as it can lead editors to question whether the project was human subjects research, and therefore would have required IRB approval. Along the same lines of program evaluation, quality improvement and quality assurance projects may also be conducted. Given the similarities between these types of projects, we will examine them alongside program evaluation. Quality improvement, similar to program evaluation, is a systematic approach to the analysis of practice performance. The end goal with these types of projects is to allow the findings and data to facilitate change in order to improve the program, policy, organization, etc. This is typically a circular approach in which you would complete your project, implement a change, and then study how that change contributed to improving the program, policy, organization, etc. An example of this type of project in University College may look like conducting a survey of healthcare companies' home health nurses to examine what factors lead to employee retention, then providing an action plan for the company to implement to determine if retention rates improve. Quality assurance is slightly different than program evaluation and quality improvement in that it's most often seen in the business sector. For example, a student in the executive MBA program may want to ensure that the website that they've developed for a company is meeting the needs of what that company needs on a regular basis. This type of data collection analysis allows for the maintenance of a desired level of quality in a service or product. Perhaps a student will have a pop-up link that allows the end user to provide feedback on the website, and may also conduct focus group with employees to ensure that the data that they are receiving from customers, their end user, is what is needed to effectively deliver their service. Another common project type we see a lot of at DU is the use of public data sets. Projects that seek to use publicly available, de-identified datasets are typically not required to undergo IRB review. Students across a variety of programs and departments tend to do this type of research rather than collecting their own. As long as the dataset you are getting is not a restricted access level dataset, and you will not be obtaining additional data points from human subjects, then you will typically not need IRB review. Datasets from the Inter-University Consortium for Political and Social Research, the Centers for Disease Control, and the FBI Uniform Crime Reporting Program are a few examples of data sources that are readily available and have rich data that allow students to develop a research question and analyze the data in a complex manner. The final common project types that we will cover today include projects that utilize private information and/or human specimens. Projects that involve the use of existing and/or prospectively collected private information and/or human biological specimens may not require IRB review. These types of projects are most common at DU in specific programs such as the Noble Institute for Healthy Aging. While these projects typically are conducted under the supervision of faculty, it is still important for students to understand a bit more about these project types, and specifically what is meant by coded or de-identified private information and human specimens. Coded means that identifying information, such as names and phone numbers that would enable the investigator to easily identify a participant, have been replaced with a code, such as a number, letter, symbol, or a combination of elements. Also, for data that has been coded, it is recognized that a key to decipher the code exists, which would enable the linkage of the identifying information to the data points or specimens that are being utilized. For example, you may work with a faculty member to better understand how dementia impacts brain tissues. These projects will often utilize a biobank, such as a collection of blood or tissue samples for analysis. These biobanks contain coded human specimens, and as a researcher at DU, you have no way of identifying who the sample belongs to because you do not have access to the key to decipher the code, but rather that key stays with the hospital or organization at which the specimens were originally collected. Similar to coded data, de-identified data means that all identifying information, such as names and phone numbers, have been removed from the dataset. There are 18 key identifiers that must be absent for a dataset to be considered de-identified under the HIPAA privacy rule. Unlike coded data, there is no key to the data source. So, while the data may have a specimen number, such as 123XM, there is no way for you to ascertain the individual from which it came because there is no key available to link that code to an individual participant. If you are using a dataset that has no identifiers, nor any way for you to ascertain the identity of individuals via a key, it would qualify as a de-identified dataset. Now that you've had a chance to fully develop your project, and you've determined that you do not need IRB review because your project does not meet both definitions of human subjects and research, or perhaps you've also now determined that your project fits within one of the common project types. But you also need a letter to document that your project is not human subjects research, like for your dissertation committee or an evaluation journal you plan to publish in upon the completion of your project. What do you do next? It is highly recommended that you complete DU's HSR determination form and submit it for formal review. This will allow you to obtain formal documentation regarding your project, which can be useful if you intend to publish your project findings or if you'll be defending your project in front of a committee or otherwise. The HSR determination form can be found on our website. The HSR determination form is straightforward to complete and includes such questions as your contact information, your faculty sponsor's name and contact information, as well as the purpose of your project and the procedures you will utilize. Next, you will see a checklist of common project types. Many of them should be familiar at this point. If you fit into one of these project types, great! You'll check the box and move on to the submission portion. If your project does not fit within these types, you will continue on to Section C and answer a few additional questions before you submit. So, how do you submit this form for review to the Office of Research Integrity and Education? We've worked hard to make this process super simple. Please submit your completed form and any accompanying documents to hsrrequest@du.edu. Please do not submit HSR determination forms through IRB-Net, as they will not be processed. We typically are able to review and issue a determination within 14 days, and oftentimes even quicker. To wrap up, let's review the quickest way for you to proceed. First, please utilize the resources available on our website. If you've read through the materials and are still a little unsure, you can utilize the HSR determination form to help you determine if you need IRB review, either through filling out the form or submitting it to our office for review. After our office has reviewed your HSR determination form and any supplemental documentation, a letter will be issued to you via email to indicate whether your project meets the federally regulated definition of human subjects research and IRB is required, or 2, your project does not meet the definition of human subjects research and no further action will be required on your part. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about projects that do not meet the federally regulated definitions of both human subjects and research, and the process for completing the HSR determination form. I hope you found this video both useful and informative.